Hello YouTube and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres, and in today's video I will be continuing my Russian line review yet again, just as I have the past few days, and I will be doing the Tier 5 Russian battleship, the Pyotr Velikiy. I think that's how it's pronounced. I could be wrong, and I'm certainly not going to be trying it again anytime soon. I think at this point I'm just going to stick with calling it the PV. Hey, it works, right? Overall, I do have to say this is a nice Tier 5 little battleship. Although little may not necessarily be the proper term, but okay, I think you see what I mean. And, well, I definitely had a couple of good, fun battles in it. Now, one of the things that I have been noticing going through the videos the last couple of days and just getting my notes together, I've been overlooking something in relation to the Russian battleships and their overall general statistics. And I would like to take the opportunity to discuss that a little bit in this match. Now, I will kind of start off on this by saying that the PV does have the shortest main battery range of all the Tier 5 battleships at 16 kilometers. Everything else outranges her. I mean, even the only ship that even gets close to her short range is the Koenig at 16.5. And these are, by the way, this is fully upgraded range modules and everything. So that is the maximum potential range that this ship can reach out to, with all things considered. Now, the only ship that the PV can technically outrange at this point is the Gangut and the Wyoming at Tier 4, but considering Tier 4s really don't tend to see the Tier 5s too terribly often, your chances of actually seeing something that has a shorter main battery range than you are, well, I'm not exactly going to say slim, but the chances are, if it's on the map with you, it's going to have a better main battery range than you, so you're just going to kind of have to live with that, as is the case with just about all of the other Russian battleships as they are right now. On the other hand, and I suppose this can come as a little breath of good news, if the Pyotr Velikiy, well, I did just try and pronounce it again, didn't I? And I said I wasn't even going to bother. The PV does have a maximum surface speed of 26.5 knots. This makes her the second fastest, not the fastest, but the second fastest Tier 5 battleship. The only thing faster than her on the surface at Tier 5, battleship-wise, is the Congo at 30 knots. So, within some reason, you can at least expect that there are going to be very few things that, once they are within your main battery range, that they are not going to be able to outrun you to get back out of your main battery range. So, if need be, you can always slip in behind them if they're trying to run away and just chase them down. If nothing else, they are certainly not going to be getting out of your main battery range easily, though there are a couple of them that may kind of sit like right on the edge for a little bit, like the Miyogi, which has a 28 knot max speed, and the, well, you do also have a couple of the Tier 6s, which also push that 26 knot boundary. That being said, she can also still chase down a couple of Tier 7s rather effectively, like the Colorado and the Naga, which both are still a few knots slower than the PV. So, if nothing else, she can at least keep pace with most of her targets, not necessarily counting cruisers. So, at least there is that breath of good news. If they do get into your short main battery range, they're going to have a difficult time getting back out if you are dedicated to chasing them. Overall, though, you are still kind of in that situation where, yeah, your main battery range is starting to look semi-reasonable, but you are still kind of gonna want to stay closer to the center of the map so that you can have the ability to switch targets somewhat easily if you are, well, if you're defending one flank and all of your targets are suddenly either dead or gone. So it does happen to be rather helpful, at least, if you can just stay more central on the map. And again, that's something that's just kind of going to be relatively good practice anyway for most of the Russian battleships as a whole. And, well, at least when you start getting up into the higher tiers, they do retain some of their speed a little bit, so they... And, I mean, with 26 knots, at least the PV does have the ability to relocate somewhat efficiently. But, I mean, it's still a battleship, it is still somewhat slow, and it is still going to take some time to get where you want it to go. So, just one of those things to keep in mind overall. Now, the PV, just like the Gangut and the Kenya's Suvorov, is definitely a ship that can tank like there's no tomorrow. That being said, she is starting to see a couple of the smaller problems that are prominent with the mid-tier battleships, especially the Ismail and the Sinop at Tier 6 and Tier 7, in that she does start showing some of the predilection for having flat surfaces leading up to the casemates. And that is a problem in the simple sense that these are flat surfaces which, if a enemy battleship does happen to get a decent look at them, they will absorb lots of penetration damage. And that's not exactly something that is especially desirable. Now, at this point in time, you are still capable of angling relatively well, at least somewhat, but if you show just a little too much of that bow side armor, yeah, those casemates will kind of channel those shells straight in through the armor plating, and it can hurt, but it's not exactly terrible. And of course you do still have the absolutely glorious one-shot delete capability if you get a decent look at a close-range target. And that's something that just about all of the Russian battleships are going to keep, I think, just working up through the tech tree. Now, the last few minutes of this battle are actually going to be a case in point for what I've been saying in regards to the PV's capability as far as just chasing down targets that are trying to run away. The Kaiser, Tier 4 German battleship, has a surface speed of 22.3 knots. Now, at 26.5 knots, if I dedicate myself to chasing this thing down, I am definitely going to catch her. There is no doubt about that. It's going to be a slow chase, and as long as she's also at that sort of mid-12-ish kilometer range, it's also not exactly going to be my best display of accuracy or marksmanship either. However, the simple fact remains that this is the last ship on the map. I am in a slightly faster battleship, and as such, I am not going to let this Kaiser get away from me. And I am basically going to continue chasing it basically until the end of the match. And it is at least a nice little trade-off for having your short-range guns. Because, again, as long as you can have the enemy in your main battery range, you can keep them there. And the only thing that can really escape you is a Congo or anything of higher tier, and even then, there are even a few of the higher tiers that really aren't going to be outrunning you too easily either. At Tier 6, the Ismail is the only thing that's really faster than you as far as the Russian line goes, And the Normandy is actually nice and quick with 29.5 knots. Beyond that, most of the other ships at tier 7, yeah, they're kind of going to be outrunning you, but you can at least pace them long enough to do at least something if they're trying to run away. The fastest at tier 7 is actually the Gneisenau with a top speed of 32 knots. But, I mean, even a Sinop or the King George with 28 knots, the Lyon at 27, they're not too much faster than you, so you, especially if you're initiating the chase at shorter range, they're not going to be able to get away from you easily at the very least. They're going to have to devote a good chunk of time to just getting away from you, and, well, there are definitely other things that are faster that are going to make their life miserable if, again, they're running away. So that's just one of those things to kind of have, again, just in the back of your mind as far as making your life easier is just, if you have other battleships, push into them. Maybe not completely, but push in enough where they are definitely firmly within your main battery range, and then just sit and chase them down if you have to. Because once you have them in your sights, they will not, for the most part, be able to get away from you. To a point, as a more aggressive player, I can definitely think that this is going to be something that owes a lot to the play, or gives a lot of playability to the class. Again, especially for your more aggressive players, where they enjoy just being able to get into combat and chase down their targets. And, well, also from the aggressive player standpoint, I can definitely say that, beyond a doubt, I have enjoyed the battleships that are a little bit faster. The fast battleships like the Iowa class, even the French battleships, simply because of their capability when it comes to just being able to position quickly, reposition quickly, or whatever, and just get to where the action is. On top of the fact that they can charge in, they can close distances quickly, and just overall make life a little bit easier when you're trying to gain the advantage in some ways. They make phenomenal pushers, and I mean, even just that, if you're on fire, but you're not burning too badly or flooding too badly or whatever, they retain their speed somewhat well. They at least retain a higher speed than others, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit of a speed demon in that regard, where I just want to be able to move around as quickly as I possibly can. But I think that is just one of those things that makes a ship a little bit better, is that it has the ability to move around more efficiently and basically make the most of the time that it's on the map. Lord knows I hated playing in the Colorado because, that thing, even at its best, it makes 21 knots at tier 7. Everything else around you is racing around, and it takes you almost the entire match to get over to the other side of the map when everybody else is running around and has been back and forth like 2 or 3 times already. Now, overall, the match you've been watching in the background here was actually rather good. Almost 128,000 damage done, almost 65,000 credits earned net. Commander even pulled away with 2,800 EXP. And I do kind of want to point out the fact that this isn't exactly going to be your norm. That's definitely more your high-end result. I had a couple of other matches, again, in sequence, because I do, for any ship that I'm reviewing, I do 3 battles in sequence, because I do usually intend to at least showcase some of that. And just, if I only show one result, it's because I'm reasonably sure that's something that you can expect as an average. This one, I just got such a drastic difference between my best and my worst that I couldn't not show all of them, at least in some regard. Now, I'm not going to show the matches because the other two matches are kind of slow and boring over as a whole, and not really showcasing too terribly much of what the ship is capable of. But I did feel that it was necessary to show just how highly variable this ship's matches ended up being. I mean, the match that you watched earlier, that was 128,000 damage. The next match in line, I only did 29,000 damage, as you can see here. It was a lousy match, to not put too fine a point on it. I mean, hell, I didn't even get a damage rating on the V170, and I know I shot something at it at some point. And for that match, my actual net income was only 1,300 credits. Now, granted, as I've said before, for me a profit is still a profit, but 1,300 is really kind of pushing the lower boundary of what I'd like to get. And then, of course, we have the third match in line where I pulled out 67,000 damage, 65,000 credit earning, and it was a little bit better all around. Overall, it's definitely a ship that, just because of her positioning in the overall tier list, tech line, so on and so forth, she does have a lot of variability, and you can feel that variability rather dramatically at points. That being said, she is still a very strong contender at Tier 5, very, very capable in the right hands under the right circumstances, and I do believe she has very good playability to basically just about anybody. She handles very similar to most of the other battleships at Tier 5, and I think she will fit in very comfortably for the vast majority of players. On that note, I am running out of some things to say regarding the PV. I will skip just a few seconds forward and say that she does earn almost 32,000 credits for the third match, which is reasonably respectable for a Tier 5 battleship, and just overall, it definitely works out. Anyway, on that note, I suppose I shall go ahead and let you all go. I hope you do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you have enjoyed what you've seen here, and, well, just get in line for more, because I do have another video still lined up after this one. On that note, I hope you all take care. Happy hunting. Stay safe, folks.